Some moments in life hurt so much that no amount of time can make the pain go away. That night was one of those moments. The man who once promised to love and protect me had already broken my trust, turning my life into a living nightmare. But breaking my trust wasn't enough for him. He wanted to destroy me completely. Without warning, he grabbed a handful of my hair and pulled so hard that I cried out in pain. Before I could do anything, he slapped me with such force that I fell to the floor. My pregnant body hit the ground with a loud thud, and a sharp pain shot through me. But what happened next was something I could never have imagined. My name is Lily Carter, and I am 28 years old. If someone had told me a few years ago that my life would turn into a nightmare before becoming something I never thought possible, I would have laughed. But life has a way of showing us harsh truths in the most painful ways. Once, I was a woman who believed in love, promises, and forever. I thought marriage was built on trust and loyalty, but I was wrong, so very wrong. I met Ryan Blake when I was 23, in a city where I had always dreamed of building my future. At the time, I was just a regular fashion designer working at a small boutique, hoping to one day start my own brand. Ryan, however, was nothing like me. He was rich, confident, and dangerously charming. From the moment he walked into that boutique, flashing his charming smile, I felt drawn to him like a moth to a flame. "Did you design this?" he asked, holding up a sleek black dress. I nodded shyly. "Yes, I did." He smirked. "It's beautiful," he said, his eyes locking onto mine. "Just like you." And just like that, I was swept off my feet. 4 months, he spoiled me with attention, taking me to fancy dinners and making sweet promises about our future. He made me feel special, chosen, loved. So, when he proposed, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, sure that I had found the man of my dreams. But dreams can turn into nightmares faster than you think. The first time I met Sophia Blake, Ryan's mother, I realized I would never truly belong in their world. Sophia was the head of Blake Global Enterprises, a powerful luxury real estate company, and she made it clear that I wasn't good enough for them. At a big party at the Blake mansion, I walked in wearing the nicest dress I could afford, hoping to make a good impression. But the moment Sophia saw me, she looked me up and down with a look of disgust, as if I was a stain in her perfect world. "So, you're the designer my son is so interested in," she said, swirling her wine glass with a fake smile. "How unexpected." Ryan squeezed my hand to comfort me, but deep down, I knew I wasn't welcome. From that night on, everything started to change. The man who once adored me began to pull away. Ryan spent more time at work, more time at his mother's estate, and less time with me. By the time I was 7 months pregnant, our home was filled with silence and tension. The man who used to hold me close at night now barely even looked at me. And then, one night, my world fell apart. I still remember that night like a scar burned into my soul. The apartment was eerily quiet, too quiet. I sat on the couch, gently rubbing my swollen belly, trying to ignore the ache in my back. I should have been happy, excited to welcome my twins into the world, but instead, I felt uneasy, like something was terribly wrong. Ryan had been distant for weeks, barely talking to me, coming home late, and when he did, he smelled of expensive cologne, one that wasn't his. My heart didn't want to believe what my gut already knew. Then it happened. Ryan walked into the apartment, his face blank and his eyes cold. He didn't greet me, he didn't even look at me, he just stood there in the doorway, his hands clenched into fists, as if preparing for something awful. "I can't do this anymore, Lily," he said, his voice flat. My heart stopped, I could barely breathe. What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed and rubbed his temple. "I mean, I'm done with you, with this, with everything." His words cut through me like a knife. "You're leaving me?" My voice cracked, my hands instinctively cradling my belly. Ryan finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the truth. The man I had loved was gone. My mother was right, Ryan said coldly. "You don't belong in my world." I should have listened to her from the start. It felt like the ground had vanished beneath me. A protective instinct surged within me as I placed my hand over my belly. "Ryan, please," I begged. "We're about to have children together. This isn't just about us anymore." He let out a bitter laugh. "That's exactly the problem. I never wanted this. Lily, I don't want you, and I definitely don't want to be a father." The room spun, my body felt weak, but I refused to break. "So, this is what it's about," I whispered, my voice barely holding together. "You're choosing money over us? Your mother's approval over your own children?" Ryan's face twisted with anger. "You don't understand. If I stay with you, I lose everything, the money, the business, the future I had planned. It all felt like a cruel joke. And for what? A life I never even wanted. Tears filled my eyes as I stared at the man in front of me. He wasn't the person I had fallen in love with. No, Ryan Blake had become a stranger, a coward who chose greed over love. I should have stayed silent, should have let him walk away without another word, but the pain inside me turned into rage. "You're a pathetic excuse for a man," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You're nothing without your mother's money, without me, and one day, you'll realize you lost the only people who truly mattered." That was when it happened. Ryan's jaw tightened, his eyes darkened, and before I could prepare myself, his hand shot out, slapping me hard across the face. I gasped as pain shot through me, my head snapping to the side, my vision blurred with shock and tears. But before I could react, he grabbed a handful of my hair, pulling it so hard I cried out. "You don't get to talk to me like that," he growled, his face inches from mine. "You're nothing without me, Lily, nothing." I winced, my scalp burning, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might break. My body shook, but not from fear, from anger. I looked him in the eye, refusing to back down. "No, Ryan," I said, my voice calm despite the tears on my face. "I am everything without you, and one day, you'll beg for my forgiveness." He laughed, pushing me away like I was nothing. "Don't count on it." And just like that, he turned and walked out the door, leaving me alone, pregnant, broken, and abandoned. I pressed my hand to my burning cheek, breathing heavily, shaking from everything that had just happened. But something inside me changed in that moment. I knew, without a doubt, that I would never let Ryan or his mother win. One day, I would rise from the ashes, and when that day came, I would take everything from him, just like he had taken everything from me. The night Ryan walked out of my life, it felt like a part of me had died. For hours, I sat on the cold floor, my fingers still pressed to my stinging cheek, my hair messy from where he had pulled it. I was shaking, not just from pain, but from shame, heartbreak, and anger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to cry until there were no tears left. But then, a small movement in my belly reminded me I wasn't alone. My babies were still inside me, still depending on me, and in that moment, it hit me like a wave of fire. Ryan had left me, thinking I would fall apart. He had chosen his mother's wealth over our family, sure that without his money, his name, his power, I would be nothing. But he was wrong. I wasn't going to disappear. I was going to rise. The next few months were the hardest of my life, with no money, no husband, and no family to turn to. I was completely on my own. Sophia Blake made sure of that. She used her power to get me kicked out of the apartment Ryan and I had shared. She froze all our joint accounts, making sure I couldn't take a single dollar. 7 months pregnant, homeless, and completely alone. I had nothing. I knocked on doors, begged for help, but no one wanted to get involved. The Blake family had too much power, too much influence. If anyone helped me, they risked losing everything. "I'm sorry, Lily, but I can't risk my business for this. I wish I could help, but I can't afford to lose my job. Maybe you should just go back and beg Ryan. He is the father, after all." I refused. I would rather starve on the streets than crawl back to the man who had destroyed me. So, I did what I had to do. I took whatever jobs I could find, cleaning shifts at motels, working as a night shift waitress in a small diner, sewing clothes for a local tailor. My feet swelled, my back ached, but I didn't stop. I barely slept, barely ate, but every single dollar I earned, I saved, because I knew that one day, I would need it. When the time finally came, I gave birth in a cheap, crowded hospital, alone, no husband to hold my hand, no family waiting outside, just me. It was the most painful experience I had ever been through. But the moment I heard their first cries, a boy and a girl, everything else disappeared. I held them close, breathing in their warmth. They were so small, so fragile. "I will never let anyone hurt you," I whispered, my tears falling onto their tiny faces. I named them Noah and Emma, names that belonged to no one but them. No connection to Ryan, no part of his legacy. I refused to put his name on their birth certificates. As far as I was concerned, he was already dead to us, but deep down, I knew the truth. One day, he would regret everything. One day, he would realize he had walked away from the only thing that ever truly mattered. But by then, it would be too late. I didn't just want to survive, I wanted to win. Ryan and Sophia thought they had destroyed me, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. I would become more successful than Ryan ever imagined. I would build something greater than his family's empire, and when the time was right, I would take everything from him. But I knew I couldn't do it overnight. I needed time. I needed a plan, and then it hit me, I already had one. There was one thing Ryan's family had never taken seriously: fashion. Then, one day, an idea came to me. A big charity gala was coming up, one hosted by some of the richest families in the city, including the Blake family. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to attend that gala. I was going to make sure every single person there remembered my name, and that night would be the first step toward my revenge. I had nothing, no status, no connections, no invitations, but I had talent, and I had a plan. The Blake family was hosting one of the most important charity galas of the year. It was an event where the rich and powerful showed off their wealth, dressed in expensive gowns, sipping overpriced champagne, and pretending to care about charity. Sophia Blake would be there, Ryan would be there, and so would I, not as a guest, but as a storm waiting to strike. I spent every moment designing, sewing, and perfecting the dress that would change my life, a dress so stunning, so unique, that no one could ignore me. It was deep red, a color that screamed confidence and power. The fabric hugged the body like a second skin, flowing in layers so smooth it looked like liquid fire. The open-back design was bold yet elegant, with a delicate silver thread running through it like lightning in a storm. If they won't give me a seat at their table, I muttered, running my fingers over the final stitches, then I'll burn the whole table down. The night of the gala, I arrived without an invitation. No one noticed me at first, just another woman stepping out of a cab, my heels clicking on the marble steps as I walked up to the entrance. But then they saw the dress. The moment I stepped inside, heads turned, women gasped, men stared, whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Who is she? That dress, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I walked with confidence, my chin held high, pretending I belonged there, because tonight, I did. Then, my eyes locked onto Sophia and Ryan Blake. They stood at the center of the room, surrounded by their wealthy friends. Sophia, as always, looked perfect, sipping her wine like a queen. Ryan stood beside her, polished and powerful as ever, but when his gaze met mine, he froze. For the first time since he had left me broken and pregnant, Ryan Blake looked at me and saw something he never expected. I wasn't a helpless woman he had abandoned. I was fire. I was power. I was his biggest mistake. His mouth opened slightly, shock flashing in his eyes. I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. He took a step forward, as if needing to confirm I was real. Lily. His voice was barely a whisper. Sophia followed his gaze, her usual confidence shifting into something unreadable. Her sharp eyes studied me, narrowing as if trying to figure out a puzzle. You shouldn't be here, Sophia finally said, her voice cold and sharp. I picked up a champagne flute from a passing waiter's tray, taking a slow sip, savoring the moment. Oh, but I should, I replied smoothly. You see, Sophia, I belong here more than you know. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You're nobody. I laughed softly. Not for long. And that was the truth, because tonight wasn't about revenge yet. Tonight was about making sure the world knew my name. Before Sophia or Ryan could say another word, a woman approached me, a socialite with deep connections in the fashion industry. Darling, that dress is incredible. Who designed it? I smiled. I did. She gasped. You're a designer? Do you have a label? Not yet, I said, taking another sip of champagne, but I will soon. And just like that, the first step of my plan was in motion. Sophia and Ryan could only watch as I was pulled into conversation after conversation, as people begged to know where they could buy my designs. That night, I left the gala with more than just attention. I left with my first real opportunity, and as I passed Ryan one last time, I leaned in just enough to whisper, "This is only the beginning." Then, without looking back, I walked away, leaving him standing there, watching me go, just as he had once done to me. Only this time, I was the one holding all the power. The night of the gala had changed everything. I wasn't just the ex-wife Ryan abandoned anymore. I was a name people wanted to know. By the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Designers, journalists, and socialites were all asking the same question: who is Lily Carter? And I made sure they got their answer. With the money I had saved from endless shifts and the contacts I made at the gala, I took my biggest risk yet. I launched my own fashion brand, Carter Noir. It started as a small online boutique, featuring a handful of exclusive, handcrafted designs. Each dress carried the same bold, striking elegance as the one I had worn that night. A dress should not just be worn, it should make the wearer unforgettable. That was my motto. And within just 6 months, Carter Noir went viral. Hollywood stylists started reaching out, models wanted to wear my pieces, luxury magazines began featuring my work. Suddenly, I was no longer just a fashion designer. I was a force to be reckoned with. I was a threat. While I was rising, Ryan was falling. Blake Global Enterprises, once an untouchable empire, was losing money, bad investments, a failing economy, and worst of all, Sophia's tight control were suffocating the company. I kept my eye on the news, watching as Ryan and his mother struggled to keep their business alive. Blake Global is facing huge financial losses. Investors are pulling out due to poor management. The once mighty real estate empire is now on the brink of collapse. Every headline made me smile, but I wasn't done yet. I didn't just want to watch Ryan suffer. I wanted to be the reason he lost everything. So, I made my move. Through silent investors, people who believed in my vision, I began buying shares in Blake Global. Little by little, I gained control, making sure my name never appeared in the records. And then, the day came when I owned the majority of the shares. That's when I received the official invitation to the Blake Global board meeting. The very company that had thrown me away was now in my hands, and it was time for Ryan and Sophia to find out the hard way. I arrived at Blake Global's headquarters, dressed in a black power suit, my heels clicking against the marble floors. Executive shareholders and board members filled the massive conference room, murmuring about the company's downfall. At the head of the table sat Sophia, her usual cold confidence beginning to crack. Beside her was Ryan, the man who once thought I was beneath him, but today, I was above them all. I stepped into the room, and every eye turned toward me. Then, I placed a folder on the table. As of today, I own the majority shares in Blake Global Enterprises. Silence. Ryan's face went pale. Sophia's lips parted slightly in disbelief. No, this is a mistake, she muttered, flipping through the documents with shaking hands. This is impossible. I leaned in slightly, my voice calm but sharp. The mistake was underestimating me. Sophia, Ryan finally spoke, his voice strained. Lily, you did all of this? I met his gaze, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing for him. No pain, no regret, no love, only satisfaction. I built something from nothing. Ryan, while you were busy protecting your mother's empire, I was creating my own. His hands clenched into fists. You can't do this. I smirked. I already did. Then, I delivered the final blow. As the new majority shareholder, my first official act is to remove both you and Sophia from your positions. I had spent years designing dresses, working in boutiques, dreaming of having my own label, but I had always been too afraid to chase that dream. Not anymore. If people wouldn't give me a chance, I would take it myself. At night, when the twins were asleep, I sketched, I cut fabric, I stitched by hand, I poured every bit of my pain, my anger, and my determination into my work. Ryan shot up from his chair, rage flashing in his eyes. You can't just. My palm connected with his cheek so hard that the sound echoed in the silent boardroom. Ryan stumbled back, his face burning red from both the impact and the humiliation. Before he could recover, I grabbed his collar, yanked him closer, and whispered so only he could hear. This is for the night you hit me, for the night you pulled my hair and left me to suffer alone. I let him go, watching as he struggled to process what had just happened. Then, I turned to Sophia. She looked at me with pure hatred, but there was something else in her eyes too, fear, because she knew I had taken everything from them, and there was nothing they could do to stop me. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked out of the boardroom, leaving Ryan and Sophia in the ruins of the empire they had once ruled. That night, when I arrived home, Noah and Emma ran into my arms. Mommy, did you win? Emma asked, looking up at me with bright, innocent eyes. I smiled, brushing her soft curls back. Yes, sweetheart, I whispered, I won. Because revenge wasn't about ruining Ryan's life. It was about building one so powerful, so successful, that he no longer had the ability to define me. I had risen, and I had done it without him.